Coming up on 2.5 Geeks, the androids are invading. We're going to be talking about the Asus Transformer Pad Infinity, then the Galaxy S3, AMD's got an answer to NVIDIA, and a whole lot more.
The bar has been set wicked fast. It rocked in the benchmarks. We're going to up the ante a little bit.
Processing power, I kind of understand this. Welcome back to 2.5 Geeks. I'm Ayaz Akhtar, and if you're looking alongside me, you could see Dave Altavilla and Marco Chiappetta. If you're not watching us, look up. Okay, there we go. Now, how's everybody doing? Marco, you're way on the other side of the world, or at least in the window. How's it going?
I'm doing pretty good. How's it going in your neck of the woods?
My neck of the woods are fine. I inspected the trunks of each tree. The necks look good. I'm very happy about that. How about you, Dave? How is your neck?
Well, here in the Boston neck of the woods, we got some friggin' great trunks and trees next to the cat. Doing great, thank you.
Next to the what now? The cat? I didn't quite get that.
The hopper. The hopper. Sorry.
The hopper.
Okay.
I love that commercial.
So many regional jokes that you're not getting. So let's talk about stuff you could actually buy, like the Asus Transformer Pad Infinity TF700T, the easiest name known to man. And I'm not even kidding, because Asus dropped the EEE branding for its transformer pads. Now, this is the, I believe I saw this at CES. This has a 1900 by 1200 display. If I'm right, I'm not sure. I'm sure Dave will correct me. What did you think about this snazzy-looking device?
By gum, you are right. And actually, the TF700T is the model number. The actual model name, or the tablet name, is the Transformer Pad Infinity. And Infinity making reference to the display's almost infinite resolution, 1920 by 1200 to be exact. Not quite as high res as the new iPad at 2048 by 15, whatever that is. But serious extra pixel density going on its 10.1-inch screen, and it is gorgeous. It's a Super IPS Plus display, that high bright display mode that Asus developed, 600 nits of brightness, actually significantly brighter, especially for outdoor settings, than the iPad. Really well-built tablet. My personal best bet for an Android slate, if you're in the market for an Android slate, I think it is the best tablet on the market right now. Hands down, super high resolution display. NVIDIA Tegra 3 T33. This is an upscale version of the NVIDIA Tegra 3 system on a chip. Now clocked at 1.6 gigahertz to a max frequency of 1.7 gigahertz, up from 1.3 and 1.4 in the standard Tegra 3. So a lot of good things going on, and this is one fantastic Android slate.
And it seems to come with a lot of storage, 32 gigabyte models and a 64 gigabyte model. Do you think at all, as you guys probably know about the whole Galaxy Nexus 7 that was just introduced the other day, do you think that's going to take away sales from something like Asus's Transformer Pad? Because the Transformer Pad definitely seems like it's a high-end device compared to that 7-inch under $200 device.
Yeah, I think it will, but I think you're really talking about apples and oranges too. When you talk about 7-inch slates, whether it be the Nexus or I'm blanking now all of a sudden on the tablet from our friends at Amazon,
the Kindle Fire.
The Kindle Fire, thank you. So when you look at those size tablets and the price range and what you're getting in those devices, they're definitely more stripped down. They're smaller devices, and you're talking about the $199 to 300 max price point. These are definitely upscale devices from that. They're a higher end sell. These are tablets like the Transformer Pad Infinity and the Transformer Prime and some of the other slates that are out there, Toshiba's Excite 10.1. These are all competitors to the iPad, to a full 10-inch slate. And so that's really what you're talking about here. The nice thing about the Transformer Pad Infinity is that there's lots of upgrades under the hood versus the previous generation Transformer Prime, but the price stayed the same. So you've got 1 gig of DDR3 1600 megahertz memory on board for the system memory versus 1333 in a Transformer Prime. You have an upgraded 2 megapixel front-facing camera up from 1.2 megapixel. 8 megapixel rear facing camera, same resolution, but you get better optics, a wide aperture f2.2 wide aperture lens, as well as some additional upscaled electronics. So the quality that comes out of the still camera actually is quite good for a tablet camera. Believe it or not, it's not bad. And so all these upgrades for the exact same price point as the previous gen, 32 gig model at $499, 64 gig model at $599. You really can't complain. And again, versus the premium price points we're seeing, devices like the iPad and Motorola's Zoom and all these other 10-inch slates that are on the market, very competitive, and spec-wise and performance-wise, it exceeds many of them, except for perhaps the iPad. I guess that's just probably the closest competition for this tablet from Asus, but really impressed with it, and a good buy. And it's like apples and oranges versus the Kindle Fire and the Nexus 7, that's for sure.
I definitely did not expect to hear about the Motorola Zoom at all on this show, considering that's like so old. It's not even like the Zyboard is the new hotness from Motorola, and that's even got a sillier name. But the Zoom, pulling out the Zoom, wow.
Yeah, all right. I was just reaching for names, but you know what I'm saying. There's lots of tablets out there. The Galaxy Tab, 10-inch slate. Now here you're talking about a tablet that's again in the same price point, but the processor on board can't even compete. You're talking about the TI OMAP processor on that. Doesn't even compete with this higher end Tegra 3. So a lot going on for the folks at Asus with the Transformer Pad Infinity. We liked it a lot. We gave it an editor's choice.
Speaking about competition, you know how AMD and NVIDIA basically are constantly in some kind of, I can't say this, it's almost like they're testing stuff. They like to push each other around and go, hey, my device is better than yours, I have the fastest whatever. No, you don't. And they'll go back and forth. AMD's got his brand new Radeon HD 7970. Is this, Marco, is this some answer to something NVIDIA did, or is this something so amazing on its own that we should talk about it by itself without even talking about NVIDIA?
Wow. No, we definitely need to talk about NVIDIA. So the new product is I'm going to say new product with air quotes. It's the 7970 gigahertz edition, Radeon HD 7970 gigahertz edition. So it was exactly 6 months ago that the original 7970 came out. When it hit the scene, it was the fastest single GPU available. Fast forward a few months, NVIDIA launches the GeForce GTX 680. And all of a sudden, NVIDIA is back on top with the fastest single GPU that also happens to consume less power, and it's a smaller die, so it's more economical for NVIDIA to make it. Now, AMD wasn't too happy with having the second fastest single GPU, so what they did is they're basically aggressively binning the very same Tahiti GPU that's on the 7970, same 28 nanometer, 2.8 billion transistor GPU. But on the 7970 gigahertz edition, the default clock has been increased from 925 megahertz up to 1 gigahertz. And AMD has also introduced a boost feature where under load, the GPU can boost up to 1050 megahertz, so 1.05 gigahertz. And the memory speed's been goosed from 5.5 gigabit per second effective to 6 gigabit per second effective. So you've basically taken the 7970, goosed all the speeds and feeds, and ended up with a faster card.
Okay, so let's not even compare it to anything, but how did it perform? I mean, you got these little tweaks, you got these boosts and everything. Is it actually much better than what it's replacing? Because it's like, oh, look, we gave you an extra 100 megahertz. Look, here you go.
So with the hardware tweaks and software tweaks that have just come with more maturity in the drivers, it is faster than the original, anywhere from 8 to 15% faster than the 7970, than the stock 7970. Now versus the GTX 680, saying the 7970 gigahertz edition is faster really depends on your perspective. So in synthetic tests like 3D Mark and Unigine, tests that use heavy tessellation, the GTX 680 was still a little faster. In other games, the Radeon 7970 gigahertz edition was faster, and in GPU stuff, the Radeon is way faster. So it's sort of going to depend on the games that you play. If you're more if you're interested in GPU stuff, it really depends kind of where you're coming from. Now, if you look at price, 7970 gigahertz edition is $499, GTX 680 right around $499, maybe a little bit pricier depending on the model. So AMD has a claim here for the fastest single GPU, depending on the apps being run. It's definitely not the most efficient GPU. GTX 680 still uses less power, still a little quieter overall. But if you're a performance freak, Radeon 7970 gigahertz edition, is arguably the fastest card out there.
That's definitely, I think that should be like clipped right there. That was what you said. If you're a performance freak. That is perfect. I like that line. Let's talk about the Samsung Galaxy S3. It is Samsung's super phone. They had a very long, I believe it was an hour and a half presentation introducing it several months ago, I think. And now it's finally shipping, even though there's a lot of delays because it's a very popular phone. It's available on all carriers. And the craziest thing is, it's known as the Galaxy S3 on every carrier. What an idea. Not Skyrocket or Vibrant or Captivate, whatever other stupid adjective you can come up with. Let's actually talk about the phone, because Dave, you have it. You were showing it flying by in white. Is it inspired by nature, as they say?
I don't know about it being inspired by nature. There's not a lot of natural anything going on with this device, but it's pretty sharp. I guess organic, sort of, polished, rounded corners maybe. But yeah, a really sharp phone, no question about it. The Android smartphone to have these days. I've been fortunate this last couple of weeks to get my hands on some pretty hot hardware, as it were. And so this is Samsung's 4.8-inch Super AMOLED HD display, 1280 by 720 resolution, Corning Gorilla Glass 2 on board. And what I think is probably really the star of the show, the 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Qualcomm Snapdragon S4, otherwise known as the Crate processor. One of the fastest chips in the market right now. Upgraded Adreno 225 graphics core on board. This thing ripped up our benchmarks, looked great doing it, and just a super, super nice phone. And it's on every carrier, as you noted. And we even have AT&T LTE service up here in Boston. So it's good times on Samsung's new device.
Now, other than the fact it's running Android 4.0 right now, which is Ice Cream Sandwich, I've heard this version of TouchWiz as I'm not making up this, the least offensive skin on Android. This version, and there's a lot of Samsung tweaks that are in this phone that you're not going to find on Android. There's S Voice, which I think is powered by some other application. There are Samsung tweaks in this device that you just won't find in any other phone, including a whole lot of gestures. Like when you got to try out those Samsung specific features, what did you find?
I'm still coming up to speed. Jen Johnson actually reviewed the phone for us, and she does quite a nice job with a hands-on demo of it. S Voice does work pretty well for some of the basic tasks you might have, whether it be checking on the weather or GPS driven, where's a good pizza where I am kind of thing, that kind of stuff. I don't think it's quite up to Siri level, but it's a pretty solid alternative. And I would agree with the observation that this TouchWiz iteration, by the way, is the least offensive Android skin. Well, I would say HTC's got some fairly nice skins as well with their Sense UI. They've actually polished theirs up. Some folks would disagree with that, but I personally don't mind Sense at all. But TouchWiz, the version that's on this phone, is definitely better than, like I have a Samsung Infuse 4G, definitely better than that interface, no question about it. There are some little gotchas, though, that kind of annoyed me that I'm hoping they polish out on the phone in terms of the interface. One of the things that I like to do, because I don't like to text while I drive, is I like to be able to use the speech-to-text feature and send a text message. So I can just fire up a contact real quick, send my voice text, and then have the phone translate it and send it right out. A couple of taps and I've effectively text while driving, but not really. So to do that on the Samsung Infuse 4G with the old Samsung interface, by the way, is a one-tap function. You just you fire up a text chat with somebody, with one of your contacts, and you can just, on the text keyboard, hit the mic, and away you go. Now with the S3, you've got to pull a little drop down from the top, change the input method from text, the microphone is no longer located on the keyboard, and now you've got to change the input method to voice. And so it's the little things that they still have to polish out here and there that they're going to get user feedback on. I'm sure that was just one thing that they didn't really think much of. Oh yeah, we can just hide it behind this menu and it's no big deal. Well, it was a big deal to me, and I think a few other folks will find it, just one extra tap. Other than that, the performance of the phone, you pick it up, it is just impressive. You right away notice the responsiveness, whether it be flipping through application tiles or control panels or what have you, or browsing the web and pulling up a web page. The other thing, this phone has 2 gig of RAM on board. You don't find many smartphones or tablets, for that matter, with 2 gig of RAM system memory. That helps a lot. You've got a dual-core processor, 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4. Definitely a high-performance smartphone processor, no question about it. Back it up with 2 gig of RAM, and now you've got a lot of cache. Then you don't have to go to the solid-state memory for access. And so, really good stuff. Well built and well equipped.
On to the world of Microsoft. They had a pretty slow week last week. They had like a surprise thing in Los Angeles. They're like, oh, by the way, hey, we're gonna say we really love our hardware partners and you do a great job, but we're gonna introduce our own hardware with the Surface tablets. And then they're like, oh yeah, by the way, on Wednesday we have our Windows Phone 8 thing, and we're gonna tell everybody who had Windows Phone 7.5 or 7, yeah, you're left in the cold. So they just had a pretty boring week, right, Marco?
Yeah, it was a totally insane week for Microsoft, and it set people off in a tizzy. From OEMs to analysts, everybody's kind of trying to figure out where Microsoft is going with things. Because although they did make some really huge announcements, not every detail was disclosed. So as you mentioned, 2 kind of really big stories. First, Microsoft announced the new Surface. Now, Microsoft Surface there are 2 tablets. There is an ARM-based tablet, a Windows RT-based tablet, and an Intel-based tablet running Windows 8 Pro. And then the second big announcement was all of the changes coming with Windows Phone 8, the biggest of which is that they're going to be using the NT kernel. So they're unifying the kernel across their smartphone, tablet, and desktop operating systems. So huge sweeping changes coming to their smartphone OS as well. Now, what all these announcements did, the Surface announcement, it was fairly well received, I think. There's some people that are, kind of rolling their eyes. The hardware itself looks pretty hot. You have these gorgeous slates with similar form factors to other products on the market right now, but with different manufacturing technologies used to make the frames and this really cool magnetic clip-on keyboard options. You also have, obviously, ARM or Intel-based tablets that are similar form factors to what's available now, but with the full Windows experience. The big kind of question is, what does that mean to Microsoft's hardware partners? It's been almost 40 years where if you bought a Windows PC, it wasn't a Microsoft PC. A partner built it, an OEM built it, someone else made it. Now you're going to be able to get what's essentially a Windows PC, but built by Microsoft. So some OEMs are kind of ticked off, to say the least. And with Windows Phone, you have this really cool new Windows Phone 8 operating system, and all of the current Windows Phone 7 and 7.5 devices are not going to get it. There's going to be a 7.8 update that changes some of the interface options on Windows Phone, but they're not going to get all the really cool stuff with Windows Phone 8. So lots of interesting stuff to discuss with Microsoft.
Yeah, so back to the Surface point. Now, the x86 version that's coming out is going to be delayed by 90 days from when Windows 8 hits, because its partners are expected to introduce Windows 8 tablets at the same time. Strangely, though, a lot of the news, the rumors were that Microsoft didn't tell any of their hardware partners they were doing this. They didn't give any discounts to the Windows RT manufacturers. Oh, by the way, we're going to be doing a piece of hardware that's going to compete with you directly. This definitely has some really beautiful design. But one of the things that drove me crazy about this presentation was you couldn't order it. You don't know when it's coming out because they have not. They said it'll come out when Windows 8 does, and it'll be priced comparably to other tablets. Marco, I want to ask you something here. You know how a lot of PCs come with crapware or bloatware? Yep. It subsidizes the cost. Can Microsoft offer a computer, or can they offer a pure Windows experience at the same cost as other OEMs without putting bloatware on there.
Yes. Now this is a perfect setup. Lots of people were saying, "Oh, Microsoft's releasing this because they have no confidence in their OEM partners." That's garbage. So tablets are a huge growth market right now. There's still tons of growth going to happen. So it's simple dollars and cents. Microsoft wants in on some of that big money coming in. Now the kicker is Microsoft's not going to charge themselves a licensing fee, so they're going to have a little bit more flexibility with pricing, I think, than the OEMs. And I'm sure their negotiating muscle being as big as they are, they're going to get great deals on the hardware as well. So yeah, I think they'll be able to offer a more premium Windows experience at competitive prices if they choose. That's the kicker. I think Microsoft's positioning these devices as the upper echelon, so they may want to make a killing on them and might charge a little more. I think that discussion is still going on, which is why we don't know exact release dates or pricing.
And back to Windows Phone 8. Now, the little throw a bone to the current Windows Phone users is that Windows 7.8 we talked about, Windows Phone 7.8, which, by the way, Microsoft's been pretty fast and loose with the version numbers of Windows 7, if you haven't noticed. Version 7,
yeah.
Then there was version 7.1, which is actually known as Windows 7.5, and I think this one is 7.3, but it'll be 7.8, just so you have the nice 8 number in your device. And
right,
what
exactly.
8 brings to the table, you can't actually take advantage of on those old pieces of hardware. Like,
right.
Oh, wow, you can really take advantage of multi-core processors. Well, none of the first-gen phones had those. There's no reason for that update. Do you think?
Right.
I mean, what kind of like burning did Microsoft just do to their early adopters by saying, and Nokia, by the way, who went in whole, like entirely into Windows Phone, saying, yeah, you know that first thing you bought, yeah, get rid of that. That's nothing. That never happened.
So there's lots of other hardware dependencies too with Windows 8. So I think current devices, although all of the details have not been disclosed, current devices are likely to get all of the software only and interface tweaks is my guess. So the interface, it's going to offer a consistent experience as far as the look and feel of Windows Phone 8. But Windows Phone 8, as you mentioned, is going to have multi-core support. It's also going to be based on the NT kernel, so it's going to be very, very optimized to handle multi-core processors. It's also got NFC support. None of the current phones have NFC capabilities. So, it also has higher resolution screen support. None of the first-gen devices, they all have the same 800 by 480 screen. So lots of the new stuff coming with Windows Phone 8 requires new hardware anyway. So I think they just harpooned sale. They weren't selling a lot anyway, but they just harpooned sales for the next few months because there really is zero reason to buy a Windows Phone now, knowing that likely by the holidays, you'll be able to get a Windows Phone 8-based device. But, they've kind of laid the groundwork for some really cool stuff, man. You're going to have, as I mentioned, smartphones, tablets, PCs, all running the same kernel. You're going to have similar experiences across all three. And although the Xbox 360 is not this same kernel, it has this, lots of Metro influence now already. I think Microsoft's going to be able to do some really cool stuff moving forward. And everything we know now, it's the tip of the iceberg. A year from now, I don't know, man. Microsoft's going to have some cool stuff and be able to offer some unique synergies between smartphone, tablets, PCs, and your TV with the Xbox.
Crazy technical question. With the kernel change, does that open the door to x86-based or Intel-based smartphones for Windows Phone? Because
yes.
Yeah.
So it does, but it also eases software development for somebody that wants to make something that's going to work on all Windows 8-based devices.
I'm just thinking about how Intel want to get in the smartphone game. They have partners with Motorola. They're going to be putting Android phones out, and wonder about that. Now that just came to me while we were talking about that. Oh yeah, that's kind of a big deal. It can do that because Windows is running on everything now, so it doesn't make a difference. Dave, you got any thoughts about this whole thing? This seems massive.
Yeah,
Microsoft.
I think it is huge. I think Marco hit on what's happening here. It's certainly a confluence of all sorts of different opportunities for Microsoft, and I think they obviously, they're a big company with lots of resources, and they see the big picture. The big picture is what the folks at Apple and the folks at Google and other, big, large entities in these spaces have seen for a long time. It is a cross-platform, cross-venue solution that is interesting to the consumer, whether it be on your TV, with an Xbox, a Google TV, or an Apple TV, on a slate, an ultra-portable device in your pocket and a handset, or on your desktop. And I think unifying that ecosystem, unifying the certainly the base, core software architecture, and as a result, having that cross platform portability, that's huge. And if anybody can pull it off, it's Microsoft. And I think we are starting to really see things get interesting now. Finally, it took a while. There were lots of sort of buzzing around right now, around Apple's success. I'll be honest with you, that you see Google and the likes with Android just really trying to chip away, and they've had some success. Microsoft starts putting their muscle behind something like this, it could get real interesting real quick.
Any other final thoughts from anybody before we start wrapping up the show? I'm going to put it in the brown paper bag and wrap it.
Well,
I think I'm good.
Go ahead, Marco.
No, I think I'm good. I'm clear.
I would offer that we are working on yet another sweepstakes. We have to assemble what the approach is. We have a couple of thoughts. We're wondering if we should do another tablet sweeps with multiple devices, or if we should go back to the good old system sweeps, or maybe even a notebook sweepstakes of some sort. So if you are listening and watching this episode of jump into the comments underneath and offer your 2 cents on what you want to maybe try and win, and we might be able to conjure it up for you. How's that?
Sounds like a plan. I'm going to put in a vote right now. I'd like an actual desktop system, because that hardware's going to. I mean, the software's going to change. So go get something neat now. But anyway, that's me. I don't know what you guys are going to do, but you can put it in the comment section right below this video. And by the way, if you're already here, you're probably looking around. You're like, hey, this looks like HotHardware.com. I wonder if any of the stuff they talked about was maybe on this site. It totally is. Everything we talked about was on HotHardware.com. See, that's the trick.
Figure.
It's probably even links below this video. I don't know. If you're at the YouTube site, you can probably go over to HotHardware.com to see that stuff. Oh, that's right, because Hot Hardware is all over the web, right? There's dig.com/HotHardware, or there's twitter.com/HotHardware. There's facebook.com/HotHardware, or YouTube, like I said, youtube.com/HotHardwareVids. And then there's Google+. So do a search on Google+ for Hot Hardware so you can check out content there as well. By the way, I want to say this. I don't think anybody ever says this enough. Steve Ballmer, way to go. You freaking lost your mind, but way to go. I didn't expect this. I didn't see it coming. That was brilliant. You have a legacy, and it's not the kin, so nicely done.
There you go.
That wraps up this episode of 2.5 Geeks. We'll see everybody soon. Thanks for stopping by.